Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Complete Python course for beginners. If you're new here, I'm really glad you joined. I'll be your guide as we keep learning Python step by step. In this video, I want to talk about the basic data types in Python. But before we jump in, I want to emphasize something very important about assignment in Python. I'll write here the example from the previous lesson, because it helps illustrate the point clearly. When you see the equal sign, whether here or here, it is not a mathematical equality, and it's really important to understand that distinction. The equal sign in Python is an assignment operator. On the left side of the assignment, we have the name of the variable. On the right side, we have the value we want to store inside that variable. That value could be a constant, another variable, or even a full expression. For example, in this line, the expression on the right is an arithmetic expression. Python evaluates the entire expression first, and only after that, the final result is stored in the variable on the left. Let me show another example. Let's define a new variable called n, and give it the value 7. Now, for instance, I can assign n plus 5 back into n. In this case, it's very clear that this is not a mathematical equation. Mathematically, there's no value of n that satisfies n equals n plus 5. Here, the equal sign represents assignment. Python first evaluates the expression n plus 5, which is 7 plus 5, giving us 12, and then that value, the 12, is stored inside n, replacing the 7 that was there before. Now that we've emphasized that point, we can return to talking about the basic data types in Python. As we've already learned, when we define a variable, we're asking Python to allocate a small storage box in memory for us, a place where we can keep information. The size and structure of that memory box depend on the type of data we store inside it, or, as it's more commonly called, the data type. Up to this point, we've already seen two data types. The first is the integer type, a whole number. So, for example, the number 5 is a constant whose data type is integer. In Python, integers are represented by the keyword int, which is short for integer. Python also provides a built-in function called type, which receives a value or a variable and tells us what its data type is. For example, in this case, we can see that 6 is of type int. And sure, that one's pretty obvious. We already know 6 is a whole number. But the real power is that the function can also check variables. For example, if I write, now I know that the variable n currently stores a value of type int, an integer. Another data type we've already encountered is the type used for real numbers, or numbers with a decimal point. In Python, this is called a float. For example, we can write, which tells us that 4.0 is a value of type float. In many programming languages, once you give a variable a data type, that type is fixed, meaning if the variable n currently holds an integer, then from that point on, it's only allowed to store integers. But Python is much more flexible with this. Python lets us store a different data type in the same variable later on. For example, I can now write, and at this moment, the variable n no longer holds an integer. It now holds a float, a real number with a decimal point. Let's check that using the type function. By the way, here's a small tip. In the Python shell, you can scroll through your previous commands using the arrow keys. This flexibility that Python gives us has both advantages and disadvantages. On the positive side, it provides a lot of freedom and convenience. But on the downside, it can sometimes lead to logical mistakes if we're not paying attention. So it's something you should use carefully. And personally, I recommend avoiding this kind of type switching unless you really need it. Another data type we have in Python, one we haven't talked about yet, is the string type. A string is a collection of characters, symbols, or even numbers, enclosed in double quotes or single quotes. For example, this is a string. I can also create a string using single quotes. In Python, unlike many other programming languages, even a single character written inside quotes, whether single or double, is still considered a string. For example, of course, we can also store a string inside a variable. For instance, in Python, the data type for strings is str, which is short for string. Let's check the type of our variable name using the type function. Just as we expected, the variable name is indeed a string. If we write several strings on the same line, one after another, Python will automatically merge them into a single string. For example, so the string A, the string B, and the string C all get combined into the single string ABC. But this behavior does not apply when variables are involved. For example, if we write the variable name followed by the string A, we get an error. As you can see, Python doesn't understand this expression. This is a syntax error, meaning the structure of the code is not valid. So, in order to concatenate strings, we use the plus operator. For example, this time the strings were successfully concatenated. This, of course, also works when concatenating two literal strings that are not stored in variables. The important thing is that both sides of the plus operator must be strings. If one side is not a string, Python may raise an error. For example, Python is essentially telling us, I don't know how to combine a string with an integer. However, and this is pretty cool, Python does let us multiply a string by an integer. For example, let's multiply an asterisk by 5. And we've created a brand new string made of 5 stars. We can also multiply the variable name by 2. And that gives us a new string where the value repeats twice. Yoav, Yoav. If something didn't work or you got stuck, feel free to write a comment below. I'll be happy to help. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share it with friends who want to learn Python. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.